That's a good exercise, guys, if you want to practice your 16ths, 32nds, and 64th notes. If you approach the 16ths and 32nds as single stroke, you can either do 2 beats of each and do them like in bursts, or you can do 4 beats of each. But if you try to just start at a really slow tempo first, so you can really hear the difference between the 16ths, 32nds, and 64ths. But a good way to just kind of bury it within to get the feel of it and how they stand out differently within the same pulse, same tempo, is just to do nice and slow and really good, just try to think of playing nice and even and clean and relaxed. But you're basically doing 1 me and a 2 me and a. So you hear I'm doing the 3 progression, but my 64th notes I'm doing closed double strokes. So it gives you the opportunity to get fast single stroke hand speed in. For those fast 30-second notes that are single stroke, those take a little while to develop. It's easier just to kind of do them close, do them double stroke. But for when you're going around, especially on acoustic drums, going around the toms, it's really important to try to do them single stroke and like really articulate and all finger stuff. And one cool little thing, like I'm not recommending people play like this, okay? But if you hold the stick between your index and your middle finger, and you come down on a surface, see how far the stick flies back into my hand? Okay, so see how much rebound, like the stick will literally fly out of my hand. It has so much rebound if I'm not careful of how I control it. Now, when you go to your normal grip, if you don't get that same response and that same amount of rebound, you got to work on your grip somehow. And you're not guiding the stick back up, you're letting it flick back up into your hand from the rebound. So see, I'm not bringing it down and then bringing my hand back up to bring the stick back up. I'm letting the stick flick back up naturally. Oops, see so much rebound, it'll fly out. But it's better, that's actually a good thing, to have a loose grip and be dropping sticks rather than a tight grip and trying to muscle everything out. And you should see space in between your thumb like this. And if you play more in the pads of your fingers and use more finger and touch control, that will develop your stick control way more than trying to hammer everything out with a tight grip and just playing everything you play single strokes. So open strokes are great. Faster open strokes will get you faster closed strokes as well. So you want to practice your doubles, as fast as you can get them up to open stroke. I accidentally hit my stick, but that's still open for me, and then I have to switch to closed once I get to about that tempo. So, I'm still doing open here, right? And then it's like whatever each person's maximum is for that week, too, because they'll keep making solid progress as you progress through the week, right? Just practicing it. But you want to get your opens, start slow, and then, but get your opens to where you're still able to sustain a faster tempo playing open. I'm still playing open and then switch. So I know it's hard to see my hands kind of where I'm at and that stuff. But I'm doing opens, wrist and fingers, each motion, wrist fingers, wrist finger, wrist finger, wrist finger, wrist finger, doing that motion the whole time with my opens. And then once I can't sustain that at a certain tempo any longer, it starts to fall apart. Then that's when you switch to closed stroke. And I know it's not the best angle, my hands are hidden behind the bar kind of, but that's just my point of open versus closed. So you can see the difference in my motion and my hands. That's opens and then closed. So, but I still have space there, and I'm still using my fingers. It's just more of this kind of an angle. And that's what I'll show too, is that I know it feels natural for a lot of people because we walk this way, right, to play with your hand when your hands come up like this in French grip. But what I'll find a lot of times is that people use French grip, but their wrists, right? In French grip, you're supposed to be using your fingers. So that's what gives you all of the height and control because you're not working with as much rebound. And especially if you have a tight grip, See, look, your wrist lock in this position, right? So these are all for specific reasons. I'm not just trying to blab on just to blab on. This will help in stick control, I promise. It really will. But because it's the way our bodies move. It's the way our joints move. It's the way we're designed. It's the balance of the stick. It's the way the stick's designed, right? And then figuring out how to anatomically get that to work with your body in the best way. Because I guarantee, like, I got tendonitis really bad in my left hand because I was trying to just work my left hand because, you know, it being my weaker hand, trying to work it up to the speed of my right hand. I was just spending, like, days and weeks and months on nothing but my left hand to the point where I just went too hard on it, and I got serious tendonitis to where I couldn't play. And then you really hope, then you're like, dang, man, I wish I had better technique, because if you do this, you know, just like tennis elbow, just like carpal tunnel, just like pitchers, their shoulders or their elbows will go out. Golfers, all of that kind of thing, it's a repetitive stress injury. So same thing with drumming. If you're not holding, you want to see that looseness in the grip. You want to see that, you know, if you're starting to play like this and you're playing from we call this playing the front of the stick. So more of like guiding the front of the stick down. Let me see if I can just turn here to this rack tom, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But guiding the front of the stick down like that versus playing the back of the stick with your fingers. Much different. And see the rebound I get? So that's a way better angle than when I was on the electric kit. Sorry about that. But see how the stick is just naturally flying back up into my hand? That's what you want to, and then we call it the bouncing of the ball motion. So then you just continue that motion, and you're working with the rebound and letting the stick do all that work for you. So loosey-goosey is better than tighty-hurdy, okay? So back to my point, though, of if you're having a French grip, what'll happen is your wrist lock in this position and your thumb is on top of the stick, right? You can't get rebound if your thumb is blocking the rebound from coming up, right? Remember this little test I just showed, right? This kind of a thing, and same thing with your regular grip. So if you're not getting this same amount of rebound, and what'll happen is if it's usually one of two things, okay? What I'm describing now with the French grip, thumb is on top of the stick, you're not going to get rebound because your thumb is blocking that rebound from coming up. If you're too far over in German or match grip, then your index finger is blocking the rebound from coming up. So that's why Weckel designed the Weckel grip, and that's why Weckel grip is phenomenal. It helped me so much because I was just self-taught. I did all my rolls with fulcrum, you know, and I talked about that in a lot of past videos. And yeah, I could pull it off, and because I didn't know any better, and I was just trying to copy the sounds, but like my fingers were sticking out, you know, and I'm trying to get it, but I was, you know, basically playing like that, right? So, which is highly improper, but I didn't know, and it's self-taught, and I'm just trying to copy the sounds I'm hearing, right? But, so you instantly take that front finger away, it forces you to use your back three fingers. You have no option because you're no longer relying on your pinch in the front of your fulcrum. So it automatically makes you have a looser grip, and it engages all of those back three fingers, because a lot of times I'll see people leaving their pinkies out, or even full, ring and pinky, because they're also playing straight. They're playing with the stick at this angle rather than slightly to the side in this angle, where then, because see, if you're like this and straight on, right, then it's really just your fulcrum and your trigger finger able to pull down because the stick is straight and parallel with your arm, basically, right? But in matched grip, that's why we have our little V. Because our little V, our little drummer's V in our matched grip, is what creates the stick going out to somewhat of a sideways angle so that all of your fingers are then engaged. If you're playing straight on, see, then those fingers aren't engaged. The minute I kind of do a little bit of a V, now all my fingers are engaged. So that's why the Weckel grip is so important, guys, and it's my favorite grip. Now, these are just suggestions. I'm not saying you have to do these things, but it's good to play around with your grip because you never know what you think you might be doing right, or but you're really not, and you think it's too difficult, or I get frustrated when I practice that stuff. So I don't care. I'm just gonna stay with what's comfortable and what I know. I know that feeling, guys. I know that feeling very well. But to progress and to evolve, you know, just approach it as a joyous thing and as a challenge and as a journey. Because if you do it that way, then it's exciting. Then it's the sense of accomplishment. Then it's, you know, then it's not a drag to, you know, practice your drags. So, you know, but don't. But, you know, what it is either you're playing French in this way, your wrist lock, right? Or I see people doing what we call the pointy finger. That prevents all the rebound from coming up. Thumb on top of the stick, same idea. Too far over, same idea. Pointer finger blocks it. So that's why Weckel came up with, okay, well, we are all taught to play like this. We're all taught to play with our pinch in the front. But look, you can only bring the stick that far back when you're pinching in the front, with your fulcrum in the front. Take that finger away, now watch. Parallel with my arm. So just the minute you take that front finger away, now you can flick the stick all the way back to parallel with your arm, and you can get a power stroke without having to move your arm at all. And you're letting the stick do all the work, and you're working with that bouncing of the ball motion and letting the stick do all the work for you while your hand is just guiding the stick up and down at the right time. Fingers are pulling up at the right time for doubles, that kind of idea. So if you practice this, and you get way more rebound of the stick flying back up into your hand than you do with your regular grip, then you know you got to work on something with your regular grip, that something's improper with it, okay? So that's why, you know, French is this, German or matched is this, and then they say American grip is about halfway in between those two. So not here, but more about here. But you're still playing with that V. But see what happens with this gap here and the looseness. See, now there's no impedance for the stick to come up and down. So when the stick hits the surface and comes back up, it's coming up through this gap because there is that looseness, that gap and space in my fingers, between my thumb and my fingers. Now, if you don't see that space in there, you know you're playing too tight, and you're using all wrist, and you're guiding the stick down. You're playing the front of the stick. So that looseness, and especially the Weckel grip, if you at least just experiment with it, I know it can be frustrating at first. Like, I even had to focus on, okay, point my fingers out. Like, I would point my fingers to the side, out all goofy at first, just to remind myself, don't play with my front fingers, don't play with my front fingers, don't play with my front fingers. You know, because if you do that, then it's more of this motion and all within your wrist, and you're trying to rely on the weight of the front of the stick, rather than the looseness and where the actual most of the control and the weight of the back of the stick is, and using that. Okay, so I don't know, they're just a little lesson video, I guess, but it's important with grip, because once you get to your fine touch stuff, your fine control, it's all going to really, really matter, because, you know, being able to get your doubles out in a clean way where you're not having to force yourself to muscle them out, that's what's so, so important. So using touch and letting this, so, you know, and I know you're looking from sideways, but see, you can still see the space in my hand, and I kind of want this angle so you can see what my fingers are doing as I do it. So this is the drop pickup method. So where I'm dropping my fingers and then picking my fingers up for the second stroke. Okay, open stroke. And see, I'm doing wrist fingers, wrist fingers, wrist fingers, wrist fingers. And then that's, you know, this is what French grip would be if you're playing with all fingers. But I see people playing French grip like this. See what I'm saying? And look, no rebound of the stick coming up because my thumb is on top of the stick and blocking it from coming up. But the minute I turn my hand the other way, like the stick will fly out of my hand if I'm not careful. And so then it's just getting that bounce, that continuous motion, and then you can get smaller, you know, motion if you want to go faster, do staccato notes. So staccato notes, think S for small or soft, close to the head. Legato notes, large or loud, start with the L, large or loud. They're just Latin musical terms. So staccato notes, legato notes, okay? So that way you're practicing a combination of those. Okay, and so what I was doing for the 16ths, it's 30 seconds and 64ths. 1 E and a 2 E and 30 seconds, 30 seconds. And then back to 16th. So it's hard. I don't have the bass drum, and I'm trying to keep the pulse going. I can't keep the pulse going at the same time. But that's what the exercise is. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 30 seconds, and then 64ths, and then 16ths. And I'm not looking at my hands either. That's what I mean by it. So it's single stroke, and then you just accelerate your tempo. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. You know, I'm blocking the way now too, but you get the idea. So that way you can practice all three and get your 64th notes, because 64ths are hard to play, right? That's a lot of notes. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm playing faster. No, you're not playing faster. You're just playing more notes in the same amount of time. So you're not speeding up or slowing down tempo-wise. You're just playing more notes within that same pulse or tempo, right? So that's just a good way to approach it. Singles, and then singles for your 30 seconds. And then for your 64th notes. That guy, I'm trying to like not block too much, but play on the pad. And I have it all on a on a tom right now and stuff, but it will help, guys, I promise. And you just want that nice looseness, and let the stick do the work for you. You know, it's just literally like letting the stick do the just bounce, but you're just picking it up at the right time. But you have to also know how to control your opens, right? In addition to your closed. So, but that's why all that technique, that will be, so, it will only benefit you. I'm just trying to make suggestions that might help if you're frustrated with like the left hand, like your right hand is flying and you can do all this awesome stuff with your right hand, but the left hand is kind of lagging behind. That's usually all those different things I described. It's like you kind of just have to figure out anatomically how everything will work for you, and these are just suggestions, but if you have problems with putting too much tension in the front, you don't see this space here, you're not using your back fingers, your angle is straight on rather than kind of to the side, you're leaving your pinky out, any of those type of things, that will help immediately with this. And always seeing that nice little space in there, and you're more playing with the pads of your fingers, and then the second crease of if you're using your index, so not like this, but more where it's in here and wrapped around like that in the second crease, But for me, I just leave mine dangling kind of off to the side because I'm using Weckle grip. So that's why you'll see my front finger just kind of flopping around. It's just to prevent the stick from really going too much side to side, but all the control is using these back three fingers in a group. But see how you can see the space in my hand regardless? And that's because I can flip the stick now all the way parallel back with my arm, and that rebound is what I'm controlling. So if you're using French grip, use your fingers. Don't try to do this type of a thing, because not only will it hurt after a while, you'll definitely start to get some thumb pain and all that, but it'll choke the rebound. That's what we're working with. So yeah, if you're doing lighter notes, if you're doing staccato, I know a lot of people it feels because they just pick the sticks up, and if they haven't had a lot of formal lessons or that kind of stuff, it just feels natural. Like, okay, I walk like this, and it's okay, I pick up a stick, and okay, this is how I play with the stick. But really, if you start to engage, if you think of wrist and fingers, that's where all the control's at, guys. So, you don't want to be shooting out your arms and your elbows and your shoulders and your elbows, when you can just be relying on still getting that same velocity, same amount of dynamics, same loudness. You can be just as loud doing a proper hard wrist stroke and using the proper amount of velocity as you can as using a power stroke. 100% true. So it's just all in the way you bring the stick back and how hard you do your throwdown. So if if you're using way too much arm for all your movements and you're playing everything like this, you do that for years, you're gonna get hurt. You are gonna get hurt. So I just share this info because I don't want people to get hurt, And it's way better to practice it and get a little frustrated and then get it right than, 5 years down the line not be able to play at all because your frustration, got a hold of you and you just relied on what was comfortable, right? But it really isn't comfortable once you actually start to feel that tension and all that shock of what's going into the stick. If you hold it tight, all that shock is going straight up into your arms and your joints. You hold it loose, all that shock and tension and everything is going into the stick. Nothing's going into my hand right now. The stick is absorbing all the shock. If I hold it tight, then I feel all that, and it hurts. So, it's for our benefit as players. It's a physical instrument, and that's why I've tried. Playing with touch is much harder than just playing single strokes and hammering stuff out. You can always play louder. You can always play single strokes, but playing with touch and learning how to get, your different notes out no matter what type of grip you're using, like just keeping, a constant grip, whether I'm doing this, turning my angle this way, whether I'm playing with my back fingers, whether I'm only playing with my front finger, whether I'm playing with my, without my front finger, whether I'm going back to German, whether I have a tight, no matter what, I should still be able to get those notes out, but you're going to find what's most comfortable for you, and most of the time, American grip is kind of the way to go, and a lot of great drummers will tell you that. And I'm not saying because I'm saying other great drummers. That's how I've learned this, and it's for very good reasons. So if you're kind of stuck in a rut, or you're like, I've hit a wall and I'm not progressing, or you're not practicing certain things, like this is a great way to get re-engaged with it, kind of rediscover new things, and see, oh my gosh, wow, like I can play way more stuff. Like, just by a simple little angle change in my wrists, or my angle of attack, or my velocity, or I'm holding so tight and I'm using all wrist strokes that, I'm relying on the front weight of the stick and guiding the front of the stick down rather than flicking the stick down with my fingers. And the fingers are what's going to control all of that touch. And doing your 5 strokes, doing them in a quick sense, like in a closed stroke roll sense, that kind of stuff. That's where your closed strokes are going to come in. Not just keeping up like a buzz roll kind of thing, but then you're practicing your 5s and your 7s and your 9s, 13s, 17s, all however high you want to go up to with your strokes, but. That way you're getting the benefit of practicing that nice. And see how my fingers are, that's kind of a cool shot where you can micro see my fingers moving even when I'm going at that faster pace. So, and it's more micro movements where the pads of my fingers are picking up on that second stroke. So it still is a wrist and fingers, but then I'm just doing smaller movements and more in my fingers. Okay, guys. All right. Love you guys. Hopefully that helps some. I know I blab on too long, but it's just I like sharing the info because it's really important, and take it from someone who did get tendonitis in their left hand and had to learning improperly and just trying to copy it first and using all fulcrum, to then having to go back to square one, unlearn all my bad habits, learn how to use the Weckel grip, learn how to engage all my back 3 fingers, learn how to hold it loose enough so that I could, play, learn how to not rely on playing the front of the stick, but playing the back of the stick. All those elements, I had to go through the whole journey too. And I got injured, and so that's why I'm trying to say, and it'll dissipate, but if you play wrong for a long time, it will show up somewhere. You'll either back pain if you're not staying centered, and if you're making grandiose movements and rocking around on that kind of stuff, you'll get some back issues or some hip issues or some nerve pain, that kind of thing. If like I said, repetitive stress injury, if you're playing tight and you're doing all of this and you're trying to muscle everything out rather than staying relaxed and letting the sticks do all the work. That's why just playing air drums is great too. So you should have that nice looseness. We tell kiddos, it's like, hey, holding a baby bird. Pretend you caught a baby bird, okay? You don't want to hold it too tight. You don't want to hurt it. but you don't want to hold it so loose it flies out of your hand, right? So you want to cradle the baby bird so that you can keep it, or whatever, but without hurting it and without letting it escape. Same thing with this. You don't want to hold it tight. You don't want to hold it so loose it flies out of your hand. You want to hold it somewhere in between where you're cradling it, and that way the stick can absorb all the shock, plus you can work with all the rebound, the maximum amount of rebound that you can work with, which will make everything as a drummer much easier, believe me. Rather than having to use a muscle group for every note you're getting out, now you're relying on the rebound of the stick to do all the work for you. It's a game changer, guys. It really is. I promise. So, love you. Hope that helps a little bit. And have a great rest of your day, and happy drumming as always.